What's up, everyone? I'm Thomas,
I'm Derek,
and
and
this
this is
is
Snubbed.
Snubbed. Snubbed is our opportunity to look back at Oscars past with the benefit of hindsight and correct what the Oscars got wrong. Of course, we can't correct everything about the Oscars, but we're going to do our best to correct categories that we think could have gone to more deserving winners. This episode is going to correct one of the most egregious snubs according to a lot of people. So that's where we're at. That's what we're doing. Derek, how are you feeling about journeying back to the 78th Oscars?
I
Uh,
we were kind of talking about this a little before we started recording, but when people talk about the uh, prestige kind of in a parody type of way, when they're just kind of making fun of the Oscars and they do things like, "Oh, this is Oscar bait." This is the year that they are talking about.
you can literally point to this year as you don't get stuffier than this. This is like exactly what everyone's talking about when they say the Oscars is really stuffy. It's just all drama oriented. Yeah, 78th Oscars is like the epitome of this.
Yeah, the amount of Oscar bait and Oscar baiting and the way that we know it today, you could definitely point back to this year and be like, "Oh, this is what they meant this year." These movies in particular are what people are talking about.
And it's interesting because you look at them, and I think like I could make arguments for a lot of the movies that are here independently, but when you bring them collectively and this is your crop, like as a whole, yeah, it just like when I went back because I've seen. I obviously wanted to watch all the movies in the category we're talking about today, and I'd seen Brokeback Mountain and Crash, of course, but I had to go back to watch Capote and Good Night, Good Luck, and then Munich. Oh my God. Has anyone ever tried watching those three movies in a row?
Definitely not Oscar voters, that's for sure. No way in hell they sat down and had a day of like, I think I'm just gonna do like In Cold Blood, a hostage terrorist situation. Yeah, they're just gonna knock those out real quick. No big deal.
Oh my goodness. It was a drag. It was a drag. And like, look, I wish I was more present in the film scene in 2005 when these movies were coming out. But yeah, I was not a fan of watching all of those movies in a row. And again, independently, there are nuggets of greatness in those movies, but as a collective, like I'm happy that there have been the developments that there has with the Academy since then.
Yeah, I think one of the things we were kind of talking about too is it's wild to look at this year and see how little influence the festival season has on the
Mm-hmm.
selections and how much that's changed now.
Oh yeah.
From 2005 when these movies were released till now in 2025, the landscape of festival and how important they are and how prestigious they are and how much they tie into the Academy Awards, it's night and day. Most of these Cannes is nowhere to be found. TIFF is nowhere to be found. Like these movies, what was nominated for the Academy have nothing to do with a festival run. Like they just weren't doing that then, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's very interesting to look at the slate of films and see just kind of how different the landscape is.
Yeah, yeah. In my research, Venice was the place to
Yeah.
be in this year. There's a lot of movies, both in competition and out of competition that I still recognize, and that really I think kind of made an imprint on what I know about film in 2005. So
Yeah.
let's journey back. Let's think about 2005. I want to know kind of where you were in film, where you were in relationship, and what your relationship was with these movies, and yeah, give me 2005, Derek.
Whew, whew, okay. Um, oh boy. Come on a journey with me, friends. I was in college. I was at a Christian college studying to do Christian things. So
Oh,
I
this is
was
going to be
full
a fun.
on,
This is going to be a
yeah,
fun discussion.
yeah. So I was, so it's funny because the college imprint that I went to, as much as it was like a Christian oriented religious college, It wasn't like a Bible thumping Bible Belt type of college, and so there was a lot of room for ideas. And I've always had a relationship with cinema, so film has always been something I found really important. So even when I was at the height of my Jesus freakness, I was always trying to watch movies and find, the biblical allegory and find a way to tie it into a sermon in some way, even if it wasn't relevant, right? Even if it was something that, like, yeah, most Christians would probably never watch this movie and they'd be out with picket signs saying we're all going to hell for watching it. I took a lot of pride in watching that movie and then finding a way to tie it back in a way that, kind of made sense. I was very much about trying to meld Christianity and secularism together. So that being said, I had seen a lot of these movies at that time and enjoyed most of them. I remember very, very distinctly, I went to the Grove with a friend of mine, and we saw the special public screenings, like the limited release screenings of Memoirs of a Geisha and Brokeback Mountain back to back at midnight. Like we saw one at like 9:30, and then we got back in line and saw another one at midnight. I'm telling you, there was a time where movies only released at midnight on bullshit release date where it's like, oh yeah, it's coming out on Friday, but then the first screening on Thursday is 10 a.m. Like,
right.
That didn't happen. That just was not
Wednesday fan screenings,
yeah,
dude,
like, yeah. No, none of that happened back then. So I have a pretty interesting relationship with these movies. I will say that I was probably more pretentious than this film slate shows. Because I thought of myself as an intellectual. And so I had opinions about a lot of these movies, and I will tell you that most of them were bad because, and I can say that because I own Crash on DVD, and I thought it was absolutely incredible when I saw it. I know now that dumb college me is an idiot in his 20s, but whatever. Times have changed.
Times have changed, and I do think that perspectives have shifted a little bit, and that's just what happens. That is why hindsight is 2020.
Yes.
No, that's really interesting to hear your place at that time. I was, 2005. I was 15, so this is my sophomore year of high school.
I hate when you say these
I'm
things.
sorry. I know.
I hate it so much.
I know. And I was not nearly quite as into film. I think really the only reason I'm watching the Oscars is because I trained myself over 3 years to watch the Oscars, 2002, 2003, 2004, right? Because of Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
I was, Fellowship of the Ring just like rocked my fucking world, right? And so obviously followed those movies and literally only tuned into the Oscars so that I could watch them just sweep up. And so, yeah, that's kind of watching this show was really just a product of the conditional training I had, thanks to Lord of the Rings. And so, yeah, I wasn't very familiar with a lot of the films that came out. Again, really stuffy, not stuff that 15-year-old Thomas cared to watch. So I didn't have much of a relationship with these movies back then. And then there's Brokeback Mountain. So once upon a time, I was a young, closeted kid with very conservatively minded parents. One of them was a pastor. This was not a great time for me to be championing gay cinema, unfortunately. Like, this was just the time that it was, and I mean, I can tell you my dad had sermons about how bad Brokeback Mountain was for society.
It is genuinely with the amount of, it's so funny to me. I find it so interesting that with the amount of queer cinema that existed in 2005, before 2005, and then obviously in its growing, library of cinema, I find it hilarious that one of the biggest stamps on the cultural zeitgeist for Brokeback Mountain is that we refer to it as the gay cowboy movie. Like it is, like it's the way for people, some good, some bad, but it's the way for people to like define the queer community, right? Like negatively and positively. Brokeback Mountain is the, oh, I'm not doing that gay cowboy Brokeback Mountain stuff. Like,
Right.
you haven't seen the movie.
You haven't seen the movie, but realistically, now having seen the movie now, it's interesting because I think that the mindset back then, it was just always going to be what it was. Even if people saw the film, their own personal, homophobia or whatever you want to call it, it just it was not going to let them vote for that at that time. And it blows my mind that that's where we were firstly in my lifetime, but also this is just less than 20 years ago. Yeah. So it's cool to see the progression of our society since then. And my parents have come around, by the way. So there's
good.
But yeah, Brokeback Mountain was really this super taboo thing in my world. And so this was an interesting year because I was championing Crash. Like you, I thought Crash was great. And looking back on it, Crash has great moments. I think that I remember, like, you can, no matter what you do, the scene where the little girl runs into the street, like, no matter what you think about that movie, that scene just like rips my heart out every time. And so like there are great moments in the movie. And in my research, it was kind of interesting hearing the trajectory of how that movie got the momentum that it did. And so yeah, anyway, just probably stuff that we'll talk about later on in the program as we jump into conversation about, if you haven't guessed yet, we are going to be talking about the best picture category in this episode, because there is a lot of controversy over Crash having won best picture. And again, in hindsight, I think we all agree maybe that wasn't the best choice for best picture. So
for so many reasons,
for a lot of reasons,
that movie, like Crash, just continues to age like fine milk. Like it just, like every year there's something else that somebody looks back on and goes, oh yeah, but remember Crash? And people are like, oh shit, yeah, I do.
But you know what? I mean, I it's really interesting to hear how that movie got the momentum that it did. If I'm not mistaken, it had like a TIFF screening the year before, so like 2004, I think it had a TIFF screening where they showed like a rough cut of the film or something, and then from there it was picked up by Lionsgate. Is that who it was? If you can Google that for me really quick. Pretty sure it was Lionsgate. And then got released. Pretty sure it was in May. And so like it's one of those movies that had this like long Lionsgate, perfect, thank you. It had this long trek to the Oscars. And really it sounds like the thing that really kicked off its run to success was the cast, which is a pretty substantial cast. And I remember that's what attracted me to the movie. Like seeing this cast was like, wow, there's a lot of great people in this movie. And, a lot of them are giving really good performances. So yeah, that's, and from there, I think it just picked up a lot of steam, and it would have been really interesting to be a part of that conversation back then, to actually be a part of how it got that steam. And maybe that's just what blinded people into thinking that this is actually an Oscar winning movie, like a best picture winning movie, is being in that moment and being like a part of that conversation, and then just watching it get all this momentum. I don't know.
I think it's a twofold. So I think you're right. I think the power of the cast is definitely something that carries it forward. I think especially if you're talking about stuffiest of stuffiest movies, ensemble cast with like star-studded people. That's not a comedy. That's clearly a melodrama. Those things are going to do very, very well in a campaign. Mainly because you can trot your entire cast out all throughout the campaign season. It's, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like you just have so in kind of contrast to something like Capote, where it's like, okay, the only person from that film that you can really trot about on a campaign trail is Philip Seymour Hoffman. Without him, there is no movie. But Crash has Matt Dillon, Brendan Fraser, it has Sandra Bullock, it has everybody. Everybody is in this movie. Like, there's no one that's not in this movie. Every single role is played by somebody that either is famous or was famous or is about to be famous in this film. So it's a lot easier to kind of run your campaign. The second pillar that I think really holds this movie up in the time, not in longevity, but when you talk about the stuffiest of stuffiest people, they like nothing more than to just pat themselves on the back for solving racism. And that is what this movie does. Like, this movie's entire premise is that in one day in Los Angeles, we are going to solve racism. And listen, the 2005 Academy, the 2006 Academy loves to do that. So it makes sense as to why this was like the champion film. Because anytime old white men could be like, yeah, dude, we solved it. We did it. Nobody's racist anymore.
We did it. Look at our efforts. We made a difference. Oh, my goodness. Just to remind everyone what the Best Picture category looks like in 2006 for 2005 films. We had Munich that was nominated for Best Picture. Good Night and Good Luck was nominated for Best Picture. Capote, Brokeback Mountain, and then of course Crash won the award for Best Picture that year. And yeah, like I said, stuffy. I mean, even when you look at like Brokeback Mountain, again, independently, there's plenty of merit for it being there, but another sad trauma, populating Best Picture. That's like literally all of these movies is just sad dramas. Yeah. And Munich is almost 3 hours of sad drama.
Yeah, Munich. The names on this too, of like Kathleen Kennedy, Steven Spielberg, like he really went for something here, which okay, fine, but yeah, I think of this list, I think the two that probably hold up the most, and I think that have probably the biggest cultural impact, for better or worse, like we talked about, but clearly Brokeback Mountain and Good Night and Good Luck are the standouts. Like they're movies that Brokeback Mountain is having is it 20 years?
20 years,
right? So it's having its 20-year anniversary. So it's actually playing in theaters. Good Night and Good Luck just had a live. Yeah, yes.
I had to think about this. Like Brokeback Mountain, 20 years. Like actually, all of these movies are at their 20-year anniversary. So like,
don't do that.
I just want to remind everyone this is the 20-year anniversary of all of these movies. Brokeback Mountain is just celebrating it. Sorry to cut you off.
Have that one, but fine. I will rephrase. Both Brokeback Mountain and Good Night and Good Luck are celebrating their 20-year anniversary, with Brokeback Mountain being in theaters, and then George Clooney actually coming back to do a live showing, like a stage production, I think, on CNN. That was like a live stage production of Good Night and Good Luck, which is pretty incredible. So, and look, nobody's asking for a live stage production of Crash. I don't think anybody.
But wait, we have to celebrate how we solved racism in 2006.
I don't think anybody is waiting and clamoring for the one-man monologue show of Capote. I don't think that's on anybody's list.
Oh my gosh. No, like, okay, I have some hot takes really quick.
I'm ready. Let's go. Spice it up.
So firstly, I hate Capote. That movie was dreadful for me to watch. And I'm going to caveat that with saying Philip Seymour Hoffman deserved every award he got for that role. Like, it's one of those movies to me where it's kind of a one-trick pony. I keep calling him Ryan. Why do I do that? Philip Seymour Hoffman is the reason to watch that movie, in my opinion. He just puts on it, that performance is just easily the best performance of that year. So like well-deserved award there. He is, and I think he goes on this like Kieran Culkin run throughout award season where he's just winning everything every time for that role, as he should. So Philip Seymour Hoffman is great. That movie just like weighed on my nerves because I was so just not into it, not dialed into it. So there's my hot take for that one.
I'm with you though. And this is something that this is why I don't like biopics in general,
Yeah.
and why I don't care for particularly music biopics, which shows up on this list,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily in Best Picture, but is because they don't have that longevity. Like we already have the real thing, and so you have these flash in the pan performances. But like, did you go out and want to read In Cold Blood after? No, you didn't. No, I was in college. I read it, and I don't even remember reading it. I think I own it, and I've never read it more than once, and I still have no idea what happened.
That movie made me not want to read In Cold Blood. I just cannot deal with this story anymore. I've gotten enough of it. So I get it. I don't need to read the book.
Yeah.
So there's that. But you know what? So in looking at this and with my current understanding and my current perception of like the Oscars right now, Munich is such an interesting choice here because it is a divisive film. And personally, if the Oscars was really trying to be a little bit more accessible, man, the Steven Spielberg movie I would have put in that category for Best Picture is War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
That movie rips and it holds up. Go back and watch War of the Worlds 2005 right now. You could tell someone that movie came out last year.
Yeah.
and it holds up.
Spielberg does this all the time though. If you watch his career, not to go on too long about it, but he goes on these runs where he just does banger after banger after banger. It's all in his wheelhouse. It's all kind of big spectacle with some deeply human personal stories that are always about families. You know, he's really, really great at that. And then he's like, yeah, but I want to try something. And then he makes like 1941. And then he makes like Munich. And you're just like, I don't know that we like that. And he's like, all right, here's War of the Worlds. And we're like, he's back. He's back, baby.
And it's funny because, like, look, Munich, I don't think Munich is a bad movie. It definitely screams Oscar bait. It's, but like, I'm watching it after having watched Capote. So maybe anything would have been good after Capote. But I'm watching it and like, look, it does the thriller thing. It has it's drama. It has some action to it. Like there's definitely some suspense. Like it does all the things that a good 2 hour and 45-minute movie should to qualify for Oscars. But like, if I was, I don't know, one of the Academy Award gods, I would have looked at this and said, but guys, just hear me out, okay? Maybe for Steven Spielberg, we can attract a lot more attention to this show if we put War of the Worlds in the conversation. And of course, this is just me talking about the 78th Academy Awards in a bubble. I know that there's a whole lot of buildup, and movies don't just show up at the Oscars. They usually go through a whole bunch of award. The whole award trail leading up to the Oscars. I get that. But just talking about this independently, I just wish like something like War of the Worlds could have been in the conversation because you have something, it's sci-fi action, suspense, it's accessible by the public, like that's a mainstream blockbuster film. Top-notch cast with Tom Cruise, of course, but Dakota Fanning also there as well. Man, that would have really made this show really, really cool to watch, I think.
Yeah, I think in a different year, in a different time, as if we were to fast forward, obviously some of these people would not be on this list. You most certainly would not have Paul Haggis or Woody Allen anywhere near the Oscars. That would not be a thing now. Yeah, so it's interesting. The landscape, and one of the things I love about doing this, not just kind of revisiting some of these movies, but It's always fun to just see, like we talked about up top, just that landscape of how different it is, right? You mentioned the precursors, but like we didn't know about those precursors the way that we know about them now.
No.
Like, you know, the Golden Globes weren't really a thing in the way that they are now, and they're not nearly as important, but like Critics' Choice and all of these smaller things that kind of lead up to that, we're engrossed in that now. And even if you were a critic then, and even if you loved cinema then, like they're really insular. You weren't really able to access those things the way that you are now. And I think a lot of that is, you know, the access to the internet and how much broader you kind of have to make things. You know, streaming plays a huge part in that because you can reach a lot more people. And now it's not just stuffy old white men selecting movies that solve racism and highlight queer stories. You know what I mean? Like it's just
it's and I think a lot of that tradition, I guess, if that's the word to use, of like, you know, tracking the potential for the Oscar wins was really just within the industry. I think one of the things that really that I was most riveted by in like looking into like the history and like trying to be in that moment is when Jack Nicholson says the winner of Best Picture, he also audibly says, "Wow."
Good old Jack.
And it's funny because I watched that when we chose this category. I watched that at first, and I'm just like, "Oh, he's surprised that Crash won." But now, having done my research and knowing the odds of Crash winning, that reaction is so much more understandable because if you're in the industry, you're watching your friends and colleagues vote for movies, you know, leading up to the Oscars, and you're in those conversations. You're a part of like what we do now with speculation leading up to the Oscars. The industry is doing. We just didn't have social media back then to make it more accessible amongst us. Right. And so Jack Nicholson is probably a part of those conversations, like most likely a part of those conversations, and he reads Crash and then goes, "Wow." Like, you know, that was a very genuine reaction. And if you understand the context around Crash winning, you understand that reaction.
Yeah, no, it's the La La Land of 2006.
Yeah, that's a really great way of putting it, except La La Land happened after 2006.
You know what I mean, though. You know what I mean.
No, I get it. Like that. Like, how does this happen again? You know, like that's.
Yeah. Plus, I just like taking shots at La La Land. So
to be fair, no. Let me clarify. I like La La Land. Okay,
I know. I am on an island.
Damien Chazelle, if you want to have coffee sometime, you let me know. We will talk about your greatness.
I will not be there. Sorry. Don't invite me. You have one good movie, and that's it. Said what I said.
Oh man, that's funny. I'm gonna leave that there. In fact, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clip that and make that a short, and just keep throwing you under the bus this weekend.
Oh, we will. Yeah, you do that, we will have no watchers and no listeners.
That's what I know.
Everyone is going to unsubscribe.
That's funny, right?
That's okay. I know who I am. I know what I like.
That's fair. You do you. Be you. Yeah. You know, this is a free country. But it's okay. It's kind of right until World War III is upon us. Okay, so what's interesting about this category is that, you know, what we like to do on this show is crown what should have won. And looking at the nominees and how stuffy the nominees are, I think it's pretty clear. Brokeback Mountain should have won Best Picture here.
Yeah.
Pretty clear. And I think I put a poll out. Only a few people voted. So like, hey, go follow us on Twitter because I put polls out sometimes that I would like you to engage with, please. But there was some support from Munich, which I guess I kind of get again individually. I you know, so there's that. But like the exercise that I'd like to do here is to maybe look outside the nominees that existed here and talk about some of the other films throughout the year that by today's standards might have made the cut. And so I want to talk to you a little bit more about 2005 film. What other films based on today's standards do you think could have qualified for Best Picture?
Yeah, this is a rough year.
I'm really putting you on the spot.
I know. I'm like looking at my list of like my personal favorites, and
Mhm.
none of these, not a single one. Like no one is nominating Waiting for Best Picture. Um,
What about Tarzan 2? That came out in 2005.
Jesus Christ.
Disney did this thing. You know what? I do want to talk about that really quick because Disney is so good at just like rehashing cash grabs. So 2005 is a year that Disney just decided animated classics. Let's just make sequels, and I think like three animated sequels for Disney came out in 2005, which is just what we know Disney does, like with live action remakes and just like really cranking that machine. And so what we're experiencing with live action remakes and the frustrations that we're dealing with, like I just want to express some aggravation to Disney because they keep doing the same thing over and over, and every time they do it we think it's a new thing. Like no,
they've been doing it for a minute.
They've been doing it for a while, and we
yeah,
just, no, it's just a different,
yeah. It's just the movies that we have that are original, no one wants to see, and then everybody goes and sees the remakes and complains about them. Which, right. Okay, fine. So one movie that I think kind of stands out to me that would probably make the cut by today's standards would probably Jarhead.
Ooh,
I feel like I feel like Jarhead would touch our sensibilities.
Dang, Jake was busy that year because he had another movie. What was it called? Proof, that premiered at Venice that year as well. He went to Venice. If I was the director of Proof, I would not have sent that to Venice next to Brokeback Mountain. Your movie is going to get entirely overshadowed. Jake is going to be busy, promoting Brokeback Mountain. But that's a good call, Jarhead. I think that's even like that's a movie that I still hear about. So
yeah, the problem is like as I'm kind of going through these, there's just so many of them are like they're good movies, but they're not movies that like scream Academy. Even if you opened it up to like the top 10, right? Like there's just not a lot of them that are really that good. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of movies that I like personally, but if we're trying to excel, like you said, we're trying to expand the list. I mean, yeah, maybe Jarhead, maybe Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I think that one is a fun one that if that movie had a festival run in the way that we think of it today, I think it probably could have made it. I think it could have snuck its way in there. I'm just browsing through biopics now.
Well, it's interesting. Like
that's where they'd want to go.
I'm actually kind of surprised, like Walk the Line, because I think that there's probably things that got nominated that Memoirs of a Geisha, Walk the Line. I would, what could Hustle and Flow have qualified if there were 10 options?
I would qualify it. I would. That's one of my favorite movies of that year. Yeah, I mean, I would qualify that movie for sure.
You know what? Yeah. I would also throw out King Kong.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, because I mean, Peter Jackson coming off of that Lord of the Rings tear that he just did. I know King Kong won technical awards. But
insufferable.
What's that?
That movie is insufferable.
Which one?
King Kong.
Oh, you don't like it? I love that movie.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Look, it's absolutely stunning. But kill me with 3 hours of a monkey being in love with a woman. I just don't. I don't need it. I don't need that in my life.
But Adrian Brody. But Adrian Brody.
Nope, don't care. Don't care.
You're really breaking my heart this episode.
I'm sorry. I told you I got opinions. I got hot takes. Yeah, man, this is a rough year. Whew.
Hmm.
I did not realize how rough this year was. Um,
You know what? While I'm looking through this, I did not realize that Brokeback Mountain came out the same weekend as the Chronicles of Narnia.
oh,
Um,
really?
the conversations that had to have been happening in the Christian community.
Oh, yeah, that must have been fun. That
Which is
must have
kind of
been a good
interesting, Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Road. I genuinely like that movie a lot. And it's cool that we're getting a reboot. I hope that it is also good. So
Yeah, I trust Greta Gerwig.
mhm,
Yeah, I don't know, man. This is a strange year. This is a very,
mhm,
very strange year. There's not a whole lot of movies that I would throw into a larger pool. The thing is though, is there's a lot of movies that I like, but they're personal favorites of mine simply because of where I was and how I discovered film
mhm,
in this year.
mhm.
So yeah, I mean, if you want, let's actually just kind of transition into that, right?
Sure.
So what were some movies from 2000? Forget best. We can we're gonna do like the early days of the Academy when they went from 5 to 10 and then only nominate 7. That's just leave those other 3 blank. We don't need them. But yeah,
That's
so
funny.
what was Thomas watching and enjoying at this time?
I'll tell you what. Look, I'm gonna stick by War of the Worlds should have been a Best Picture nominee. If there were seven, I think War of the Worlds would have been in there. Ew, but you have to take away Munich. Yeah, Steven Spielberg
Not
couldn't
getting
have two.
not getting to.
You can't have two. Sorry, Steven. Like, and you're great. You are one of the greatest ever. But even you're not getting two nominations in Best Picture. Sorry. So War of the Worlds, Batman Begins. Yo, look. Dark Knight, I think helped change the trajectory of the Academy. Even though the Dark Knight was didn't get a Best Picture nomination, right? And everyone thought that it should. And so I think it was after that the Academy really kind of changed the rules about what should be nominated for Best Picture. I don't remember when they expanded to 10.
I think one of the controversies with The Dark Knight, and I could be wrong, and I'm just not going to Google it. Sorry, guys. But I think if I remember correctly, because I think we actually
Mhm.
did this year at one point
We did,
already. I
yeah.
think we did an episode. So I think if I remember correctly, one of the things that happened was they had 10 movies, and then they only nominated like 7 or 8, and The Dark Knight wasn't one of them. And so everyone was like, what is the point of having 10 if you're not going to just fill all the slots? And so
Hmm.
I think that was the year where they were like, yeah, okay, fine, we'll do that. So now
Yeah.
they just do a mandatory 10. But I know they had expanded it around the Dark Knight time in
Hmm.
2008, but they weren't nominating all 10. They just said they could do it up to 10. Everybody
Right.
rioted, like, no, okay, fine, we'll do 10.
I'd never understood that. There was some like math that they had to do for that, and I've never understood it.
It's so dumb.
Um, but yeah, but understanding the the significance that superhero movies will eventually have on pop culture and will eventually have at the Academy Awards for at least the technical categories. Yeah, Batman Begins. In fact, I mean, Batman Begins is such a grounded like superhero film. Like it's still it. I think that there is a branch of the multiverse where Batman Begins was nominated for Best Picture.
I can vibe with it.
Somebody on the Academy in a different branch of the multiverse said, "Guys, we should be paying attention to what Nolan is doing with the superhero movie. Pay attention to Batman Begins."
Yeah.
And so War of the Worlds, Batman Begins, I think would have been really great. Those two movies. I haven't seen Cinderella Man in a hot minute, but I feel like that's
Ooh,
another one
yeah,
that,
that one for sure. That one
you
for
know,
sure.
sports
If they had,
drama.
yeah, if they, and that's actually a good sports drama.
Yeah.
It's a good sports drama. I think if you had 10, that's when
Hmm.
I would put it. I love that
Yeah.
movie. Actually, that's
Yeah,
I think
for
that's a
sure.
really fun movie. I think it's really good.
Hmm.
Super like overly sentimental, but
Right.
it's Ron Howard. I don't know why. Of course it would be.
Of course it would be, right? I don't know. In a silly universe, I loved The Longest Yard. Like that was fun.
Give me those movies though.
Yes.
Give me those movies. Give me
Yeah.
I want to hear 15, 16-year-old Thomas and
Okay.
his quick little Walmart bin DVD collection of 2005 releases.
Okay, Longest Yard, absolutely. That's on that list for sure. Constantine. Hell yeah.
Let's
Constantine rocked
go.
my world. And I love that this is just developing developing Keanu Reeves into the person that we know him, or the actor that we know him now. Love it. Like, yes, Constantine is on there.
You want the hottest take of this recording?
Don't break my heart again.
Oh no! You're gonna love this. Actually,
Let's go.
I think you're actually really gonna do this. Rachel Weisz is better in Constantine than she is in the movie she won for.
Let's go.
I said what I said.
I support this. I support that hot take. Absolutely. Absolutely. So Constantine's on there. Hitch was fun. Just kind of a fun rom-com with Will Smith. I was all about Will Smith at that time, so that was great. You know what? Coach Carter came out like early that year, and that was another one that really appealed to me. And then the last one that I'm going to mention, because sci-fi is awesome, and 15-year-old me was very much into sci-fi, but y'all, 2005 was when Serenity came out. And like, I did not like, yeah, Serenity just like rocked my world with the sci-fi genre.
Look, even I get it. If you're a fan of Firefly, the movie's probably not that good. I understand. I do.
Right.
I do. I get it. But
if you, because at that point, right? Look, I hadn't watched Firefly. I just watched Serenity, and so that was like my introduction to Joss Whedon, because I also hadn't watched Buffy at this point either.
Okay. No.
So Serenity was really my introduction to Joss Whedon.
He also doesn't age well, but that's a lot happens in 20 years, apparently.
Apparently, right? But yeah, I just dig the hell out of Serenity. If I was doing what I do now back then, Serenity might have been my favorite movie of that year. Yeah, maybe second to War of the Worlds, but like that.
I don't know that it would be my favorite, but it's definitely up there. And out of context, I think I find at least once a month to say something like, "Can't stop the signal, Mel." Just that is a line delivery that has lived rent free in my head for 20 years. I also, this is fun fact: Serenity is the first Blu-ray I ever owned. Yep. We had a
Serenity absolutely deserves that honor.
First Blu-ray I ever owned. Yeah, it was Serenity. No, it's a great pick.
Nice. And what about you? Let's get your
I feel like my list is pretty long. I was doing I was watching a lot of stuff. I don't know that I was actually engaging with cinema in the right way. But a couple of just fun ones that I really like, movies that I really dig. I love Lord of War. I don't care what anybody says. I just, it's such a weird movie, and you guys know I'm a stan for Nick Cage, and
of course
Nick Cage as a warlord, as a war arms dealer, an amalgamation of all arms dealers that have ever existed. Love it, absolutely love it. On fire. Red Eye, which I think is having a little bit of a reclamation with Drop that just recently came out this year, which feels very Red Eye coded. But that too, I mean, dude, Cillian Murphy and Rachel McAdams on a plane. Get out of here. How do you not love that movie? Like, Red Eye is a banger. Red Eye is so good. Constantine is also on my list. This is the year of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where I didn't know that movies could be so fun and sexy at the same time. I get why everything went south with marriages after that, because those two people have never been hotter, and like Jesus Christ! Like the on-screen chemistry of Mr. and Mrs. Smith is just like every single time they are looking at each other, you're like, they are fucking right now. Like
Right.
it's not happening. Like on screen, it's not happening, but I see it. It's this right here. There's a lot of eye fucking going on, and it is real. They are not acting. Banger. I love that. That movie is
so great.
fun. I have a soft spot for just raunchy comedies. So Waiting, Wedding Crashers, both of those came out this year. I love both of them, not equally. Obviously, Wedding Crashers is a phenomenon. But Waiting is a lot of fun. If you've ever done any kind of service work, Waiting is your god tier movie. And then just give 3 more that I think need to kind of get. Well, 4. Sorry.
Yeah, let's go.
The Descent, which is probably one of the best horror movies of the decade, or the 2000s, in my opinion. That movie haunted my nightmares and my dreams for a very long time. Combined 2 things that scare me the most: cave diving and monsters in the cave. Like, get out of here. I don't want to do either one of those things. Just the claustrophobic atmosphere of that movie. Like, you didn't even need the monsters, and then they show up and you're like, nope, I'm out.
Seriously.
Never sleeping again. This was also I want to highlight Brick, which is Rian Johnson's first movie. If you have not seen Brick, I highly encourage you to go check it out. It is a classic film noir set at a modern day high school. Everyone talks in poetry. Everyone talks in this weird kind of almost transatlantic language, but without transatlantic accents. And dude, it is like, it's a banger. Like, I adore Brick. Is so good. I love Brick.
So Brick is an unfortunate blind spot of mine, and you're going to make me hop off of this and go watch Brick like right now.
Do it. Brick is a banger. I love Brick. Little baby Joseph Gordon-Levitt, fire. Everything is Illuminated, which is a very small movie that I just really like. It's super weird, very surreal. Kind of like almost like a black dramedy, I think is kind of more of what it would be. But I don't know. When I saw that movie, a lot of these are just when I saw them, they left an impression. And that's just one of them. I just saw it at the right time, and it's just left an impression on me forever. You could rip it to shreds, and it's fine if you don't like it. But that's another one where they say, "Oh, it's my seeing eye, bitch," in reference to their dog. And I just love that line. It's just a really good line reading. It's very funny. And then the last one, which is one I think both of us want to chat about for a second, is Rent.
Oh, yes.
Listen. Rent is not a good movie. Okay?
It's not.
It is not a good movie. It is a bad adaptation of a really great show. It is not a good movie, and I love it with my whole fucking chest. Love it. Don't care.
It's really funny. This is actually incredibly funny from my part, because Rent came out 2 weeks before Brokeback Mountain did. So, like, look, Pride wasn't in June in 2005. Pride was in November, December. Okay. So that was the state of that around that time. And I can't, being a closeted, person with conservative parents, one of whom is a pastor, I couldn't pitch going to both of those movies. That was just not
in the same month, no less.
In the same month, couldn't pitch going to both of those movies. Okay,
Lord.
So I had to choose one and try to maintain my closetness at that time.
That is amazing.
And for some reason, I chose the gayer one, which is Rent. I needed my musical fix at that time. And yeah, I totally agree. Like, Rent on rewatch, like, of course I did, when I watched it back then, I loved the music, was just enamored by the music, and I'd never seen the play before, so like it was really great being able to experience the music and engage with that story in that way. Rewatching it, I realized there was just like no connective tissue between those songs.
They
And so
do
the
they do a really poor job of
yeah,
translating that. And a lot
the
of that is because Rent is a rock opera. Like
right.
there
Hmm.
is no the connective tissue are the songs and the sets. Like you
Hmm.
can't transferring that into a film adaptation is nearly impossible, especially when you're removing a lot of that connective tissue that's baked into the actual show. Like if you so I've loved this show for a very long time. I was every gay thing Thomas wasn't allowed to do as a kid. I did as a straight man. So like on paper, if you thought our sexualities were reversed, I understand. I really would.
It's valid.
I get it. It's completely valid. Because I was raised in musical theater. I grew up that. I was in choir all my life. Like those things are just a part of me. So naturally, like I gravitate. So I discovered Rent very, very early on. I'm talking 98, 99, like right when it came out. So I knew everything about this soundtrack. I saw it on Broadway in 2001. So when I was ready. When I tell you I was dialed in for this movie, I could not wait for a film adaptation of Rent. And then I was like, oh, yeah, no, I could have waited. I could just see this on it. I mean, I have to lie and tell everybody I love it, but I don't. It's not good. But the music is so good, it doesn't even matter. But yeah.
Right. The music's so good. I did appreciate the performances. It's just, yeah, it's not a great adaptation. So I love that you have that on your personal favorites list. I think that that's valid. I definitely have an affinity for that movie, just kind of in my head. Would I recommend it to anyone who is a musical nerd or anyone who appreciates Broadway? Absolutely not. It cannot tarnish my reputation like that.
No.
So, but I will, I might get drunk and watch Friends, on a Friday night. Like that's
Look, it's just a fun way to sing fun songs. That's it.
oh yeah,
You
absolutely.
pick your character, and then that's who you are for the show. And yeah,
Exactly. Okay, well, you know what? Let's do the last thing that we need to do on this show. I think that was a very fun segment. Thank you for allowing that moment of 2005 catharsis.
yes.
With
All the process,
film
guys.
appreciation. But what we need to do now is recognize that Crash probably shouldn't have won Best Picture. And I think that there really is just one other option here that probably should have won, and I think we all agree needed to have won, especially considering its impact on society and on filmmaking and storytelling since then. So, Derek, how do you feel about crowning Brokeback Mountain Best Picture 2006 Oscars?
Yeah, I feel really good about it. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's the right choice. I think it's the obvious choice, and I know
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when we do these, we like to try to dig in a little deeper. But one of the things that I noticed as we were kind of looking at all these other categories is there's a lot of categories where I'm just like, yeah, I don't think I would give them the award. But then I look at the nominees, and I'm just like, but who else would I give it to? You know what I mean? Like it just there's nobody else on this list that was better, so they're like the best of the mid is kind of how some of these feel to me. So like I made the joke about Rachel Weisz, but like she's fine. Like the Constant Gardener is excellent,
Yeah.
but like if you're gonna do the Constant Gardener, then where the hell is Ray Fiennes? He is
Mm-hmm.
infinitely better than Rachel Weisz is in this movie. Like she is literally the dead wife and every cliche that you could possibly have of the dead wife in down to the sheets and the all of it. Like that, she is so much better than whatever she's doing in here. But then I look at the nominees in the category and I'm just like, okay, Junebug's fine. I like Catherine Keener, but she's not really that big of a deal in Capote and North Country. You know what? I think if anybody would take it, maybe Michelle Williams. I think she's probably the best choice out of those. But again, it's then you're just giving everything to Brokeback Mountain. I do the same thing with best actor or best supporting actor, where it's like, yeah, okay, I like a lot of these performances. I guess if you're gonna do it, then you'd have to give it to Jake Gyllenhaal. But he's kind of this is when you get into category fraud because he's basically a co-lead. Like, so what are we
Mm-hmm.
really doing here? So while this best picture might be the obvious choice and most people would agree, I think when you really dig into the other categories, there's just not a lot of leeway. Like it's just so
Mm-hmm.
stuffy and it's so everything is predictable in
Mhm.
in these things, and you're just kind of like, yeah, okay, well, I don't this let's just do the easy one this time.
Totally. I think Brokeback Mountain has certainly had a massive cultural impact. And I think that that's important to recognize, and um obviously winning an award does not entirely, like, isn't the correct way to validate that, but I think the way that our culture has embraced this movie since then, and really recognized its significance, is the way to embrace that. And so I love that this movie is still very relevant, especially um seeing how not as prevalent most of these other nominees are currently. And that makes me happy. And again, kind of like what I was talking about at the beginning of the show, we've come a long way as a society since 2005. And man, I think that for me, this is just a really awesome moment to like stop and recognize like where I was in 2005 when Brokeback Mountain came out, having to choose between Brokeback Mountain and Rent, so I wasn't upsetting my parents.
I love that for you so much.
Right. To now, like I've been married for over 10 years now, and so like with my husband, and so it's just so incredible for me to see like Brokeback Mountain being a part of the progression of society into a more accepting place.
Yeah.
And yeah,
and I know now we're obviously those headwinds are never fully over, and they're kind
Mhm.
of resurfacing in some really awful ways. But I do think the other thing that we are starting to reclaim when it comes to something like Brokeback Mountain isn't just what it's about and how it's, who it stars, and how it kind of functions as a narrative, and what it means to the community, but it's also just a beautifully made film. And
Yeah,
I think we
absolutely.
appreciate those things a lot more. And I think when we talk about that really stuffy core, that when we talk about the stuffy academy, and then just how much the internet and how much the open spaces have changed how we view cinema, I think more and more people are starting to appreciate the beauty of cinema, and how beautiful Brokeback Mountain is. It is Ang Lee makes an incredibly stunning, gorgeous, engaging film. And
Mhm.
even if the queer thing isn't for you, or it is, or like, yes, that's front and center, but really this is just, it's so beautiful to look at. Like, it's such a beautiful movie, and it's made so well. So so I think those are things that I think we've kind of come around to appreciate. And you watch Crash and you're just like, oh my god, dude,
Oh my God.
we fucking get it. You solved racism, we get it. By the way, they solve racism by absolving an actual molester. I just want to put that on record, that is the solution, is to absolve an actual predator in this movie. We're all supposed to walk away and be like, yeah, that Matt Dillon cop guy, he's not that bad. Like, what?
Oh no.
Trash is what that movie is. Should have called it trash.
Crash, not crash. Trash.
Unreal.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
gosh.
Brokeback Mountain, you deserve this. This is
Yes.
yours. This
Yes.
Oscar is yours. We apologize for all stuffy old white men back in the day, and us youngsters when we weren't able to. Well, you were young, I wasn't.
You were still young. College is still young.
I mean, on the spectrum of 20 years, yes, 21-year-old me was an idiot as well, so it's fine.
That's fair.
But yeah, no, Brokeback Mountain is the clear winner. 100%.
Congratulations, Brokeback Mountain. We are
You
giving
did
you the
it.
award you should have had 19 years ago. But yes.
And if you want, you can thank God now. It's fine. You can thank God in your acceptance
In
speech.
fact,
It's okay.
I implore you to thank God, just in spite of the Christianity that prevented me from seeing that movie 20 years ago.
We have zero religious listeners. Zero.
I know.
Not a single one.
Anyone that might have been a listener might have just tuned out. But you know what? That's okay.
That's fine. We don't want you anyway. Brokeback Mountain is beautiful. Shut up.
Yes, it is a gorgeous film. So awesome. This is a great conversation, Derek.
Always.
If you so thanks for listening, everyone out there. We're putting out a bunch of content now. So we just published our conversation about what movie did we just talk about?
28
Eric?
years.
28
years
years.
later.
Just yesterday we have a conversation out about 28 years later going on, and I have interviews that I've collected over the past couple months from various film festivals. So there's so much content to engage with us. Go check it out at thisisforreal.com. For real, of course, spelled FORREEL. And yeah, any final words, Derek?
No, I think we did a great job. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad the right movie won
Yes.
on our show. It's always fun to talk shit about Crash. That's always a good time. So and champion Constantine, and admit that Rent is better drunk when you're basically karaokeing in your living room.
Of course. We appreciate you tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching Snubbed.